Go. Clock. All right. So what we got now is we're going to talk a little bit about gender stereotypes, which are even stronger than racial stereotypes. Not a real surprise because, I mean, half the planet is men and half are women. Races are, less than halves, right? But gender stereotypes are equally believed by men and women. I don't want to get large into this, but my wife works at the English Language Institute at UT Arlington, and there's some kind of bad treatment of women in Middle Eastern cultures. So I'm not passing judgment because I'm not ethnocentric, right? But what's crazy is that it's the women that really seem to be driving these stereotypes. It's the women. Maybe it's the men that are driving them. But boy, oh boy, do the women accept them. I mean, not just accept them, but the women embrace them. Men and women tend to believe these types of stereotypes equally. Now, don't get me wrong. Many of these stereotypes are true. The average man is. We did this in Chapter 5, I believe. The average man has more muscle than the average woman. The average man is taller than the average woman. The average man is, yes. And again, lots of overlap, etc., etc. So many of these stereotypes are true. But here, 22% of men thought the sexes were equally emotional. Women responded the same. Boy, I hope I'm right, but I don't know. I've been married for 15 years or something like that. I'll just let that one go, okay? It's just too easy. Sometimes they reflect reality, sometimes they don't. But as we talked about in Chapter 5, remember there was a list of adjectives, and some adjectives were consistently given to men and some were consistently given to women. And evolutionary psychologists seem to believe that they reflect a biological reality. Okay, that there is something there. In 1968, women were Women were given an article and told to judge its quality. These were women given this article, and they were told the author was either John McKay or Joan McKay. And if the article was written by Joan, these women rated it lower in quality. Okay. However, in 1980, they replicated the study and they found no difference. What happened between 1968 and 1980? Do I have to sing, I am woman, hear me roar? I'm not going to sing it again, all right? Burn a bra, baby. That's what happened. So we find that the women's lib movement happened, and boom, okay? Women changed their beliefs. I'd be curious if they did this study with men and found it to, I would be curious to see if the women's lib movement did anything to the men's attitudes. I don't know, but it could be interesting. Parents announced the birth of their baby boys with more pride, but the birth of their baby girls with more happiness. I don't know what that means, but whatever. Okay. Gender discrimination. I'm gonna very, very subtly. What am I saying? Shortly address that. In America, there's gender discrimination. Clearly, women make less money than men compared to for so many things, and they get less raises and promotions and all these other things. Part of that, and we already talked about it, men are more confident. Remember, it said men are more likely to be the jury leaders, even though they're equally on the jury pool. And there's something about that confidence that does lead to raises and does lead to promotions. I mean, there's some, I don't know, it's cultural, whatever. But anyway, in other cultures, it's a lot worse, okay? I can tell you that the worst position in life I can imagine being is an Asian woman that is married to a first son. Because an Asian woman that is married to a first son has one job in life, and that is to have a baby boy. Anything less than that is failure. And you know who is going to beat you over the head every single day if you're this poor Asian woman married to the first son? Your mother-in-law. You're going to live with your parents-in-law, and your mother-in-law is going to ensure that you, the daughter-in-law, respect the family. And if you have a daughter, you have failed the family, especially if you are in China and you have the one-child policy. You want to talk about a failure? You're a Chinese woman married to a first son, and you have a daughter, and that's the only one you're allowed to have. I mean, oh my God, okay? Your life is hell from now on. And it's crazy that this terrible, terrible system of discrimination is being brought on by the women themselves. That's how deeply ingrained this is in their lives, okay? And I guess maybe the reason these mother-in-laws are doing this is because they were mistreated when they were younger, and so now they got to, right, payback's a bitch, right? I don't know. All right, moving on a little bit into prejudice. Where does prejudice come from? Social inequalities. When you have unequal status, you tend to have prejudice. Rich people view poor people as lazy, irresponsible, not having ambition. Exactly. In other words, they deserve what they got. All right? If you know the economic relationship between two groups, you can predict their attitudes towards each other. Perhaps part of it is, nah, that's boring. That's boring too. I actually, I found in some research I was doing, I'm totally off to the side. I did some research with a student of mine recently, and we were actually looking at discrimination, prejudicial attitudes towards Hispanics and prejudicial attitudes towards black people. And it was really kind of interesting because I thought that some people were just prejudiced bastards and some were not. But it didn't pop out that way. There was people that were highly prejudiced against one group and not the other, and vice versa, and some that were prejudiced against them both. And we did this looking into it, and we measured two things. We measured prejudicial attitudes, but we also measured how much interaction they had with these groups. And interaction with these groups was also not predictive of prejudicial attitudes, how much people interacted with each other. And so what did, though, was how much positive interaction. How much positive interaction have you had with people in this racial group? And that number is what predicted prejudice against a particular group. And so I personally always thought, some people are just prejudiced and some aren't. Anybody ever, I know you guys are probably way too young, but maybe you remember Archie Bunker from All in the Family? That racist bastard, he just hated everybody. He hated the Jews, he was just something else. But no, according to the reality that we found, that people's attitudes towards racial groups seem to be quite separate from each other, and based on how much positive exposure they've had. Anyway, leaders often invoke religion as a way to say God wants the world to be the way it is. It just justifies an inequality that's there. It turns out, and we got to be careful here, but people that go to church express more racial prejudice than people that don't go to church. That doesn't bode well here. Those professing a tradition or a fundamental Christian belief, hey, I'm not saying that the Republicans and the Tea Party is particularly bad, but it's correlational, okay? It's correlational. Some of you might get a gag out of that. All right. What else, though? See, there's more. When people are in pain, here, in fact, I thought I had that on this slideshow. All right, I don't have that on this slideshow. I have that in the next. I remember where I have that. When people feel pain, it often leads to aggression. Pain and frustration leads to aggression. In fact, we find discomfort leads to aggression. We'll talk more about that in the aggression chapter. But suffice it to say that, when it's really hot, murders and goes up. And, when the worst time you can have is, of course, you're stuck on the interstate on a 150-degree day, and the jackhammers are boom, 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 and the smell, and the traffic is backed up, and people are honking their horns. And you want to talk about a day that somebody's going to get shot, that's the day somebody's going to get shot. Okay? Here, for example, between 1882 and 1930, lynchings in the South were highest when cotton prices were lowest, because if cotton prices are lowest, people are experiencing frustration, poverty, people are experiencing all kinds of things, and it's basically one of these things where when people are attacked, they want to attack back the thing that attacked them. We'll talk more in the aggression chapter. But clearly, what's attacking people is a low price of cotton. Now, how the hell are you going to attack the price of cotton? You can't attack the price of cotton. So you'll find another source to send that aggression. Opposition to immigration in Canada tends to rise and fall with unemployment rates. I'd be willing to bet we could substitute opposition to immigration in America tends to fall and rise with unemployment. I bet you we could do it, all right? I'm sure it would work the same. we're going to definitely spend more time on this, but it turns out that we live in groups. We're a group-bound species. And we prefer members of our own group. Do I have it here? I have it here. We prefer members of our own group, and we should. I mean, this is a very important thing, okay? Let's say I shot a deer. I shot a deer, yum, deer. Well, I don't have a refrigerator. Okay, so I'll eat a leg, whatever, I'm full. What am I going to do with the rest of my deer? Let it rot? No, that'd be stupid. I'm going to take the rest of that deer and I'm going to share it with people. Who am I going to share it with? People that are likely to share with me the next time they shoot a deer. All right? Why would I share my deer with a random stranger dude walking down? No. I'm going to share that deer with people that I'm familiar with, people that I live with, people that are like myself, because that is the highest probability that they're going to share back with me later. And that's what an in-group is all about. An in-group bias, a tendency to favor members of one's own group. An in-group is a group of people who share a sense of belonging and common identity. We're supposed to prefer members of our in-group because it is members of our own in-group that are going to give back to us. Okay? If you give a random stranger $1,000, you're not going to get it back. If you give your brother $1,000, you might get it back. Okay? There's no question. Here's a really interesting image. This was Ben Johnson? Yeah, Ben Johnson. He won the gold. He was a Jamaican born, and he won the 100-meter Olympic whatever. And when he wins a 100-meter thing, the Canadian press is, oh, our Canadian hero and shit like this. And then he gets busted for steroid abuse or something, and they take away his gold medal, and they go, oh, that Jamaican immigrant. Interesting, okay? So when he was doing well, they welcomed him into the in-group, and when he shamed, he became a member of the out-group. I don't like that one. What else do we got? Spontaneous categorization. I don't know. Whatever. All right, why don't we pause there because I have about 8 minutes left to finish this whole thing up. All right?